Welcome, one and all, to Big News Wednesday. Yes, it is Big News Wednesday. It's also Big Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there, particularly my two Valentines, my wife and my little daughter who just turned 6 months old. And also to my guest on today's show, Sharon Reed, returning once again. Sharon, how's it going?
Well, it's going okay. No Valentine for about the fifth year in a row, but it's okay. I feel great.
We all have each other. That's what we
right.
have. And in addition to that, we have a ton of news. So I'm gonna get your mind off of all that. We're gonna be talking about elections. We're gonna be talking about elections that are done, elections that are coming up. That one being Lauren Boebert's. And I love every one of these updates because she is continuing to just sink into inevitable irrelevance. So how fun is that? We've got some pressure being put on Jared Kushner. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And we wanted to get to the story yesterday, didn't quite do it. Actual consequences for social media racism. You don't often see it. That's all in the first hour. Coming up in the aftermath, we will be talking about Valentine's Day, in particular how the main men running for president these days are spending their Valentine's Day and how they're roping in their wives. Marjorie Greene losing her mind about Curb Your Enthusiasm, of all things. And a really fascinating look into the state of the presidential campaign of RFK Jr., in particular, the way money is being spent. It paints a picture of absolute chaos. So we're gonna get to that a little bit later on. Before we get to our regular rundown though, I do want to acknowledge what I think everyone on the internet sent me about, which was in the last day, William Bill Post, inventor of Pop-Tarts, passed away at 96. Everybody knows how much I appreciate a good Pop-Tart. I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay because he made it to 96, and that's pretty great. It's still a loss, for his, surviving. I'm gonna say kids, grandkids, and great grandkids. But if you get to 96, that's pretty good. I'll take that bargain. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna make it in no small part thanks to William Bill Post for his invention of the Pop-Tart, which is rapidly draining my vitality with every bite. But it's delicious, so thank you, Bill. Appreciate you for putting that out into the world. In any event, we have other news that we're gonna get to, so I need you all to buckle up. And if you're on a platform where you can hit the like button, that sort of thing, now would be a great time to do that as we launch into the big news of last night.
Let's send a message to our friends running the Congress these days. Stop running around for Trump and start running the country. The people are watching. They want us to start working together. So our message is very clear. Either get on board or get out of the way.
That is once and now future Representative Tom Suozzi's victory speech because he did win the special election for the New York 3rd District, formerly George Santos's district. He won. Great news for the Democrats. They've been doing very well the last few years in special elections, particularly in New York, but this one was very much in question for a couple of reasons that are fascinating that we're gonna jump into. But first, the results. It ended up being kind of close, not super close necessarily. That's about finalized results. There's still 7% of the vote or whatever to be counted, but he beat Mazi Pilip, the former Democrat, now kind of Republican, I guess, who was running against him. And we'll get into some of the issue specific stuff that made this race so fascinating. But I want to pause for just a second because I want you to look at those results again. So, and I want you to remember when you look at those that George Santos won that same seat by about 8 points less than a year and a half ago. And now the Democrat is set to win it by like 7 points. That is a 15-point swing in a year and a half with Biden in charge, by the way, and with economic and border chaos going and all those things that are a real concern for a lot of races. But here, it didn't really seem to be enough to get the Republican across the line. And look, there's a lot of interesting wrinkles to this race. The fact that it had been George Santos is certainly a thing, but the Republicans felt like they could win this. They felt like they got rid of Santos and now they could center the race around what they wanted to be focused on, these core issues, with this being kind of a test case for what they're gonna do with the general election of Trump versus Joe Biden. So they focused on immigration, And also the issue with the invasion of Gaza by Israel. That became a big topic in this particular district. It's one of the most Jewish districts in America, so you can understand why that would be front of mind. Tom Suozzi talked about those things. He talked about crime and immigration and all that, but he also brought up abortion. So bear that in mind, because these races, they might seem minor. You might think, well, what do I care what happens in the 3rd District of New York? But control of Congress is a very narrowly held thing at this point, and the Democratic efforts to retake it in November could end up hinging on a single race. So any race, including this, could be very significant. We have more on this, but Sharon, what do you think so far?
I think it's a good showing. I love to be cynical. I love to be a Debbie Downer, but I think this is a good showing, particularly when you talk about the makeup of that district and the 8-point win and all of that. And it could be a litmus test for more to come in other races. It's just so weird that we won't have George Santos anymore. Now he's really gone. Like, this for me really put a punctuation mark at the end of it. But I think this shows some momentum for Democrats because, this president's not so popular when it comes to, with certain segment of the population, when it comes to his stance on Gaza and everything going on there. So that we'll have to watch for that, because as you mentioned, the makeup of this district is what it is. But I think there's some positive signs here if you don't want Donald Trump and other of his minions to make it across the finish line.
Yeah, I think Democrats are going to be analyzing this and seeing what lessons they could learn. I worry a little bit about some of those potential lessons and how they might be applied around the country, because Suozzi's not like a progressive or anything. Let's be very clear about that. And he felt like he needed to take this really hard line, like matching Pilip on issues like crime and migration and support for Israel and all that. They weren't identical on those topics, but that's the ground that the battle was fought on, and not really representing like the two poles of American politics on those topics. So we'll see if that is a lesson that is disseminated to Democrats running in other races. Maybe it'll be useful in some. We'll see. But it's definitely a race that Republicans were hoping that they could win. And I want to turn now to some of the reactions outside of just our reactions to this loss. And I think you know where we're going with this next one. Oh yeah, I know. I guess probably I'm not set up for this. Following the fact that the George Santos congressional seat went to the Democrats this time around, the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, had this to say: Republicans just don't learn. But maybe she was still a Democrat, with Pilip having been formerly a Democrat. I don't see how that helps them, but I have an almost 99% endorsement success rate in primaries and a very good number in the general elections. How come you're not actually listing that one, Trump? As well, but have watched this very foolish woman running in a race where she didn't endorse me and tried to straddle the fence when she would have easily won if she understood anything about modern day politics in America. Blah, 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 blah. I stayed out of the race. I want to be loved. Give us a real candidate in the district for November. Suozzi, I know him well, can be easily beaten. Now, I know what you're all thinking. What's with the I want to be loved? I guess maybe he's trying to imply, if you want me in the race, you gotta love me, baby, for me to give you the, okay, I guess. But you do know she was beaten by the Democrat, right? So your theory that if she had just been a more deranged red cap wearer, she would have won. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. And I would say that on the topics that you seem to care about, especially migration, crime, those sorts of things, Israel, Gaza, like she wasn't like a centrist on those topics. She did like a press conference outside of a migrant shelter, and she was like vicious in the way that she talked about Gaza. So I don't know what more he wanted out of her, except that of course it's nothing that he wants. It's not a policy thing. If she'd won, he would claim her. She lost, so she was the devil and he needs to distance himself. It's all opportunistic. Sharon, what do you think?
Agree with you 100%. I'm not sure he knows who the gentleman or the lady in the race even are, okay? I do think he authored some of that, said some of that only because of the love part, just because he wants to be loved, but probably Bannon did the rest there, okay? This is, well, it's right on message for Donald Trump. And I think that she kisses the ring and maybe it would have been a 10-point loss or 12, 15, maybe 15.
Yeah, it's kind of like a split district. Like, it's such a stupid strategy. And I'll remind you, when he has to try to, like, he is the kingmaker. He does get to choose in a lot of these cases who runs, but he needs to pretend that that is to the benefit of the party. And look, I want him to keep choosing candidates because they often lose in races in which a more reasonable Republican could have won. So, don't change anything, but it just seems weird. Like, are they buying this? I was just remembering earlier today, I saw a tweet that referenced they put Herschel Walker up for a Senate seat and Dr. Oz. Those could be just two not like especially memorable, but still pretty awful Republican senators. They totally could have won, but instead they followed Donald Trump, and so they lost. And so God only knows who he would have endorsed for this race, but I agree it would have been a much bigger swing for the Democrats. Anyway, that's what Donald Trump thinks. But what about the guy who used to hold this seat? George Santos is tweeting about it. He says, "Please thank these two gems for losing a seat in the House today." I honestly, I don't even know who those people are. He's got like these petty feuds with people who he thinks are responsible for him being thrown out or whatever, when of course all of the responsibility for that should fall on his lap. He's the one that told massive, ridiculous lies about his past. But anyway, he says, "I won the 3rd district with 0 super PAC money, 0 CLF money, and 0 establishment money. Tonight, the establishment set $10 million on fire. I flipped a 23-year blue seat with the help of grassroots activists and by activating the base with retail politics and with my heat vision and ability to fly. That's how I did it." Well, anyway, look, he's not 100% wrong. He did win that race. I don't know how much I trust his read on what exactly led to that. And he obviously did not have a lot of confidence in his ability or his actual history, which is why he invented a whole new one. But does he get to gloat in this case, Sharon? Like, they threw him out. Now there's a Democrat that's going to take the seat, at least until November. The Republicans are saying, well, now the whole George Santos thing is in our rearview mirror. Now we can just choose a regular candidate and it will no longer be a referendum on George Santos. Do you think that there's something to that, or does he deserve to gloat in this case?
I don't know that it even was a referendum on George Santos. He's doing just fine on Cameo, $3.50 a pop if you want to book him on this Valentine's Day. I think that he can gloat because it's the American way and that's what he wants to do. And he's not going anywhere. He's going to launch his second act off of this whole thing where they booted him out. Happened to better people, according to him. Who? Don't know. But I think he has a right to entertain those who think it's entertaining and say whatever he wants. They lost the seat. That part's true.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to end with one little element of this that I think is great. We don't know for sure exactly what was on all of the voters' minds in this particular case, but there's some indication that what was swaying some voters in this 3rd district race is exactly what the Republicans would prefer them not to be thinking about. Take a look at this.
I talked to 2 voters today who voted for Donald Trump in 2016, turned around and voted for the Democrats in this race, voted for Tom Suozzi because they said his message on bipartisanship and the fact that House Republicans have really struggled to pass legislation over the last couple of weeks impacted the way they were looking at this race.
I heard from voters, and several of them said to me that they don't want to vote for the Republican because it's clearly impossible to get a solution on the issue of immigration, and that the fact that Republicans killed that bipartisan deal put them over the edge to vote for Tom Suozzi, and immigration was their top issue.
So look, I don't know how much we can trust. It is anecdotal evidence. Maybe there will be more of a dig into, I don't know, exit poll data or whatever. We never know in these cases, but shouldn't that be the case? Like, it kind of feels right. So, when it feels right, maybe push back a little bit, but let's analyze this, because you had a race that was focused on exactly the issues the right wanted to be focused on. People were talking about crime constantly. They were talking about the border constantly. That's what Republicans want them to be focused on. And what did the Republicans do in the weeks leading up to that election? Nothing. Not just nothing, worse than nothing. They directly stopped a solution from being passed to the exact issues that they were saying voters should have front of mind. So if the voters did have that front of mind and take it as seriously as the Republicans say that they should, and then they see the Republicans just being like, yeah, but we don't want to do anything because Trump said not to, that's the sort of thing that should turn voters. And I almost like, I don't want to get too into this. I don't want to get too much hope that maybe people are paying attention. Maybe they see through the political posturing in the games. But this is a race that Republicans thought they could win leading up to it. Analysts were saying it was basically 50-50. So this makes as much sense as anything else that I've seen, Sharon. What do you think?
I'm jumping in with both feet, like I'm stomping grapes, making wine. I think that people are slightly awake here. I do think that people are waking up because remember, they also tried the switcheroo, John, where they blamed the Democrats for not getting the border bill, Ukraine aid, Israel aid across the finish line because they wanted, more. They even lied about it. You pointed that out on the show, I believe, last Wednesday again. So I think people are smart enough to say, you know what, we're used to some tomfoolery, but these shenanigans are just, you're doing too much. Okay, my daughter said stop saying that, but I still find it to be relevant. I don't know what the next saying is, but they're doing too much and people noticed.
Yeah, I hope so. We have like constant access to a full feed of news about what they're doing, what they're saying. So much is leaked, so much is revealed. Like people should be learning from this. And I just want to believe that they can, and maybe this is evidence of that. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, there is another upcoming election that we have to touch base with. We'll have Lauren Boebert's political status after this. Okay, everybody, welcome to the social break. Let's load up your messages and see what all of you crazy kids are talking about. Fab4 in the members' comments says, good morning, afternoon, or evening, TYT fam. Happy Valentine's Day for those who celebrate, and happy TYT anniversary to everyone. Oh, that's a great point. It is also, I always forget that it takes place on that date, but it is TYT's anniversary as well. So congrats to TYT. You made it to 22 years. That is crazy. And by the way, there is a special to commemorate this. It's gonna be coming up later on today. So Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian are gonna do a full hour, like in place of the bonus episode, retrospective. They're gonna be talking about the 22 years. They're gonna be sharing their vision for TYT going forward, perhaps the next 22 years. And you can tune in on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's at tyt.com/live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and on linear as well. Now, normally the bonus episode is a thing just for members, but in honor of the anniversary, it's open to everyone. So come hang out, and if you enjoy it, maybe become a member and get access to the bonus episodes every day going forward. Okay, Pharaoh Blue Blazer Dragon says, correction, John, the border isn't important in a lot of races. It's important to a lot of racists. Dun dun. Why not both? How about that? Okay, let's see. Viking Dragon, continuing member on YouTube. Thank you, Viking Dragon. Jonathan Lee became a member on YouTube. Thank you. And Ruby Dooby Doo Dragon gifted a membership. Thank you to you all. Now, apologies. Jedi Dragon, member for 37 months, says, happy Love Day, Dragon fam. And Sharon, were I unwed, I would volunteer to be your Valentine in a manly fashion.
Well, thank you. And I would probably accept, because I think you're swell. We have TYT in common, so why not?
That's true. That's true.
Does he have a friend? Sorry.
I don't know. But Jedi Dragon, I hope your partner doesn't know your handle, because that might put you in trouble. But thank you. That's a very nice message. Okay, let's see. G Martinez Max says, I almost vomited when you mentioned H. Walker. Yeah, he was almost a senator. And we're gonna be talking about that a little bit later on in the show when we return to the topic of Georgia. Cookie Monster says this is gonna be a centrist year. Start looking for better candidates now for 26. Cookie Monster, I believe that you are very much right. I mean, they try to make every cycle a centrist year, but I think we are in a very difficult time. If you're, actually on the left, if you're a progressive, this has been a difficult time. It could be worse in some ways, but it is very difficult. But that said, once we get past this election, one way or the other, it's on, okay? Because it's not gonna be Biden the next time. So start gearing up to stop Buttigieg or whatever next time around, or probably Gavin Newsom, actually. Okay, let's see. J-Dog has been here for 34 months on Twitch, much appreciated. Pixie Powder, here for 5 months, thank you. Let's see, Kyle says, I wanna be loved. He was subtweeting Melania, he misses her. Is he capable of missing? I don't know, I don't think so. Let's see, Corporations Ate My Baby says Santos invented bipartisanship in 1969. He probably got a lot of credit because that's a district that cares about bipartisanship. Anyway, Mosquito Bite says Santos is like Leonardo da Vinci, Nostradamus, Prester John, the Wandering Jew, and Count Saint Germain all rolled into one. And that's a direct quote from George Santos. Anyway, and Sir Equinox is reminding me that Herschel Walker talked about vampires and werewolves. You remember that? Didn't he say, and I quote, werewolves are really cool? Okay, everyone. I'm trying to figure out right now. No, I did not come up with. Oh no, I'm wrong. During the social break, I was remembering a thing that Herschel Walker had said, and I got it wrong. He said vampires are some cool people, but he'd rather be a werewolf anyway. That's what the guy who was almost a senator said. Anyway, with that, let's turn from people who were almost laughingstocks as elected officials to those who are currently laughingstocks as elected officials with this next segment. Lauren Boebert has had another horrible debate performance as well as a horrible polling performance in her effort to stay in Congress by jumping ship to a district where she thought the grass would be greener. At this debate, she was mostly ignored by the other candidates on the stage, which is honestly way worse than her being constantly attacked. She almost didn't merit conversation, which is just brutal. She was attacked once, but only by the one candidate in the race who's performing worse than her in the race. And we're gonna get to that attack because it's, I think, very fair and accurate and also brutal to Lauren Boebert. So that'll be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's see how she's actually doing. So despite the fact that they're not attacking her, they're not really trying to drive her numbers down, she placed third in the most recent straw poll after the debate. And that may sound not that bad. Third, that's top 3. It's out of 4. She got 3 out of 4. So the lead candidate got 41% of the vote. This candidate Harvey came in second with 28%. She had 12% of the vote. This one guy got 6%. That's it. She's at 12%. She has been a congresswoman for 4 years. She has been a public figure, a national figure. And all of that is supposed to get people to know who you are, what you stand for, and that's supposed to help you. Unless what you are and what you stand for is a massive embarrassment, in which case maybe you should have kept quiet a little bit and you might have been safer in your reelection bid. But in any event, I did say that she was attacked once by one of the candidates. This is Chris Phelan, the guy who got, I think in this case, even less than the 6% of the vote. But anyway, he talked about how as a congresswoman, she doesn't really have any policy successes to run on. He talked about he questioned the impact of the Pueblo Jobs Act. She often talks about this as being like a great success for bringing jobs or whatever. So he said about her, are you sick and tired of people that are coming to Congress just to get more social media hits, likes, whatever they're doing? I am, and that's what I think that someone up on this stage is doing. Now, to be fair, that could have been in reference to any of the candidates on the stage. But I think it might have been Boebert actually. And I think that's totally fair. What has Boebert done? Like she tries to have her little quippy moments. She tried to have this viral moment talking about public urination in DC. And she just came out of it looking like an absolute moron. And most Republicans appear to be fine with that being the sum total of what you do, as long as you make good on those. But she's not even good at delivering those moments. And so now she's like tripping over herself to pretend that she's accomplishing something. Here's the most recent example.
Just now, we impeached Secretary Mayorkas, who's endangered our country by deliberately handing over control of our southern border to the cartel. Now that's delivering for the American people, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
She's very proud, and you can tell because she's pronouncing it like this. I'm not terrified of what the future holds or anything. I did this sham vote that won't change anything because he's not going to be convicted in the Senate. This is what they did to pretend that they're doing something on the border. They actually impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, first time in 150 years, based off of nothing. Even right-wing pundits like Ben Shapiro are like, there's nothing to impeach him over. And yet that's what she's going to run on. Weird that she's not doing better in these straw polls. What do you think, Sharon?
My glasses are still broken because I could have sworn this was like a Daily Show clip that you were playing. Now that Jon Stewart's back, she really just has lost her way. Okay, she's in a new place. She doesn't understand where she is or what the objective is at all. By the way, the public urination, was that before or after the vaping and canoodling in the theater that she got wrapped up in? I mean, it's just a mess. And at a certain point, I do think that the criticism of, that candidate who came in 4 out of 4, right? Wasn't that
4 out of 4?
I think he could be on to something, because figure out who you are and what you want in life and then go for it without apology. She doesn't have to stay in Washington, and perhaps she won't. If you want likes, if you want, join Santos on Cameo, head to Instagram. Perhaps she'll want TikTok. Perhaps she'll want to, better her performance there. But I think that's a strong point when you play an example like the one you just played. And I haven't even touched what you called correctly, the sham impeachment vote about the border and Mayorkas. People aren't really falling for this anymore. She should go.
Yeah, look, she has a position that pays pretty well, that doesn't require any actual work. So I understand why she wouldn't want to have to go back to trying to start up another restaurant that she can give people like persistent diarrhea from. This is easier. I get that. And she 100% thought, I'm just gonna go over there, man. I'm Lauren Boebert. I don't need to do anything. I'm famous. But you don't have it. You don't have it on policy, and you don't fundamentally deliver, even in the way that like a dimwit like Marjorie Greene does. She says the stupid, crazy stuff that they want to hear. Lauren Boebert isn't even as good at that. So like, she's also probably worried she can't. I don't think she can just start like a right-wing podcast or something. I don't think that she's interesting enough. And so she is definitely afraid of what's to come in not too much longer. And I would be if I were her. In any event, I want to turn to those who are gaining positions of power perhaps soon. Let's turn now to talking about Lara Trump, starting with this.
Your father-in-law has endorsed you to be a co-chair of the committee. We have big problems with fundraising, big problems with, I think, adapting to how I think the other side, is intentionally now making elections less secure for their own benefit. But the problem is that if you don't join them in this sham they're trying to pull on us, we can't win.
That is Lara Trump being interviewed after it's been revealed over the past few days that Donald Trump is pushing hard for her to be one of the co-chairs of the RNC, an incredibly powerful position in terms of setting priorities and strategy for the Republicans, as well as managing their fundraising and what they do with the money. So it's not hard to imagine why Donald Trump wants Lara Trump in power. She has qualifications, and that qualification is that she's married to Eric Trump. But she's gonna make the case for herself. So let's listen to that case and see what we think.
The Democrats have been playing a completely different game. We need to catch up, and we need to outdo them at that game. We better have at the Republican National Committee a ground game operation, the likes of which this country has never seen. We better be doing voter registration in record numbers. We also better be doing legal ballot harvesting all across this country, because those are things the Democrats always outdo us on. And let's face it, Rob, we better start telling people to go vote early. We have this notion that it would be nice if we had one day of voting. I would love that. You would probably love that. We'd love to give people the day off of work, and we'd love to have paper ballots. We don't have it right now. So we need to bank enough votes going into election day that we aren't trying to play catch up that day. Every single penny will go to the #1 and the only job of the RNC. That is electing Donald J. Trump as president of the United States and saving this country.
Okay, so there's a lot there that we're gonna get to. Let's focus just briefly on that last bit, which is every penny is gonna go to getting Donald Trump elected, which means that if Donald Trump doesn't get elected, or if he ends up being, like thrown in jail during this time, it's going to be wasted money, money that could be spent on them keeping control of the House, gaining control of the Senate, winning some state legislatures. But again, Trump doesn't care about that. And so since she's just one of his goons now, doesn't care either. All of this infrastructure, party apparatus money is just for this guy. But I will throw out here, and Sharon, I want your thoughts about this. He could just spend his own money. He's a literal billionaire. Like they're talking, like we don't do the fundraising, we don't have enough money. He could spend $1 billion and still have $1 billion. Why doesn't he just do that if he cares so much about this country and about this party? Why are you going to take all these poor conservatives' money that the other candidates desperately need and just throw it into a hole so that he can have a big bank account on the other side of it? I don't understand it, but what do you think?
I don't understand it either. But what is, I am not a billionaire for 500. Listen, she is saying the quiet part. She's screaming it, frankly, because we could just listen to Trump and now we know what this is all about. But I would say that he's not going to pay for anything himself, even his own dinner at Mar-a-Lago, because that's just not how it works. And even though every penny is going to go to him to get elected, I think is what she said. What about keeping him out of jail? Because he can't, he can do the job from jail, but I think if you really kind of look under the hood, she didn't say it couldn't happen, that they weren't going to continue to spend money on keeping him out of prison.
I just think, look, the money is one thing. Almost everything else that Laura Trump said there is reasonable in terms of what she wants the RNC to focus on. Hey, we should register voters. We should knock on doors. We should get paper ballots or whatever, a paper trail. Okay, that seems like a good thing. People should have the day off to vote. Hey, that's a great idea. Maybe any Republican ever should advocate for that. Like literally even one. See, she says that and it sounds reasonable because it is reasonable. They would never go for that because they don't want people to be able to vote. We should do ballot harvesting, which means just helping get people's ballots to be counted. We should do early voting. Every bit of that is reasonable, but she had to pitch it as we need to do all these things because that's the scam that the Democrats are running. So I guess we have to do the same thing. That's just an election. That's just what you do. Why do you have to approach it as a conspiracy? And honestly, like she should push for that. But Donald Trump is almost certainly going to push back. He's been against all of those things in the past. He tweeted back in 2020, get rid of ballot harvesting. It's rampant with fraud. So I guess Laura Trump is a fraud. He also blamed early voting for trouble in the 2020 election. Remember, he also just told people in the Georgia runoff Senate races to not vote at all. So now he's saying that early voting is a good thing. Like, just tell your voters to run or to vote. Give them something to vote for, make it easy for them to vote, tell them to vote, and hey, maybe you can win some races. All of this is just what a democracy is. For them, it's all so tied up in so many conspiracy theories at the same time. Any final thoughts?
No, he also took away all those mailboxes. Remember the ballot boxes that he said, those have got to go, and the state officials sided with him. Everything she listed, he's come out against. You're right. Yep. And now suddenly we've got to catch up with this sham that the Democrats are doing. You mean including more people, letting one person, one vote rule the day? That thing? Yeah, that's pretty much what they're saying.
I mean, look, maybe it's a good choice. Maybe the fact that she's advocating for these things that should be common sense but are not, but she's doing it while being a Trump will allow it to be palatable to Donald Trump and to the MAGA movement who's been poisoned against these things. Maybe she's actually the perfect choice to head up that group. Or maybe she is in no way qualified to be in charge of an organization like that or in charge of money like that. And it's going to be an absolute debacle for the Republicans. And wouldn't that just be a shame in this election? Anyway, with that said, we want to turn from one member of the Trump party who's getting political power purely because they're a part of the Trump family to another member of the Trump family who had political power only because they're part of his family. Let's turn to Jared Kushner.
One of the knocks about this was you leave public service, you spend all this time, particularly with Saudi Arabia, working with them. You leave a couple months later, 6 months later, you get $2 billion, and that there's a quid pro quo on this. Leaving aside, I know that you followed the law, and you've said you followed the law. From an optics perspective, or even an ethics perspective, were you at the time concerned about taking money from PIF? And if you could do it again, would you have done it at all differently?
Yeah, so PIF is one of the most prestigious investors in the world. Every fund manager is trying to work with them. If you look at right now at the time, maybe going to the Middle East as an investor was less popular 3 years ago. Now it's one of the hottest places in the world where everyone's trying to raise money from. And if you ask me about the work that we did in the White House, for my critics, what I say is point to a single decision we made that wasn't in the interests of America, number one. Number two, I say our track record of success in the Middle East is probably second to none.
So that is Jared Kushner being interviewed by Axios, and he has talked about what many have identified as one thing that could be one of the most corrupt acts from a former member of the Trump administration, which is leaving the White House and then getting literally billions of dollars from the sovereign wealth fund of that country. It's incredibly questionable. There's some aspects of it that are even more questionable than that they'll go into detail in this interview. We're gonna get to that in a second. But I want you to see how, with even kind of mild pushback and criticism, how frustrated Jared Kushner gets.
Lots and lots of private equity firms, other folks are trying to raise money from Saudi Arabia and are raising money from Saudi Arabia. Some, however, stopped after the Jamal Khashoggi murder. Some either gave money back or stopped. At the time, you said you wanted to wait for the DNI report, for the kind of official report, for the State Department report before talking about it. You kind of only give very glancing mentions in your book to it. The DNI report came out a couple weeks after you left the White House. It says that MBS personally was responsible. Do you agree with the DNI? Do you believe that report?
Are we really still doing this, Dan? I mean,
yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So let's go to this. The way that we looked at our policy at the time was let's focus on what's in the interest of America.
I'm not arguing that. But you at the time you said you wanted to wait and see what the U.S. government determined. The U.S. government's made a determination. You're obviously still in business with him. Do you believe the U.S. government assessment? You might not, but do you believe it?
So let me say this. I have not seen the DNI report that the Biden administration put out there, right? And number two is, look, I know the person who I dealt with. I think he's a visionary leader. I think what he's done in that region is transformational. The person who deserves credit for that is Mohammed bin Salman, who at that time was the deputy crown prince. And I think what he's done has been absolutely historic for the country. I think he's done a lot of things that are in America's interest. And I think he's done a lot of things that have made the world a better place.
That is amazing in so many ways. Jared Kushner there, a guy who, if he hadn't just been handed wealth by his own family, would be no one. If he hadn't then been handed political power by Trump and his family, he would be absolutely no one. Instead, he's in a position to get literally $2 billion from the Saudis. And look at how annoyed he gets when you bring up that he's making money by working with a butcher. Someone he knows butchered a journalist. MBS decided, I want that man dead. So they took him, they killed him, they cut him up. They did that. That's a thing that they did. Jared Kushner knows that they did that. Come on, like you're gonna bring this up to me? Are we still doing this? I'm trying to make money. I don't care if the guy I'm working with cut a human being into pieces. I don't care if that's what he does to his critics. I don't care if he kills opposition political figures. I don't care if he locks up and kills members of his own family. I'm trying to make money here. Why are you acting as if human life has value? I don't care about that. I care about what's in my bank account. That's what I care about. And this guy from Axios is pretending like I should care about whether my business partner is a brutal murderer and dictator. It's so impolite. And I didn't think that was the part of the story that was gonna bother me the most. I thought the part of the story that was gonna bother me the most was the fact that while that Axios guy did a good job in asking follow-up questions, he didn't ask like the most important question, which is, it isn't just that you left the White House after working with Saudi Arabia and then got this investment. It's that they didn't want to give you this investment because you're not qualified to do it, to manage that. And the leadership of Saudi Arabia had to step in and make it happen. So the advisors to the wealth fund initially objected to Kushner getting that money, saying that they're inexperienced, they can't handle the investment or the risk, they're unsatisfactory in all aspects. It's excessive to do that. The fees that they're going to be taking are excessive, and it might hurt us from PR with the fact that this looks incredibly corrupt. All of that is true. He in no way deserved that investment. According to him, everyone around the world is trying to work with this company, or with the managers of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And yet they went with him despite the fact that he and his firm weren't qualified. And they did it for the reasons that are truly making him uncomfortable, which is that it's just corruption. It's because of his father. It's because of the influence he had, but much more importantly, for the influence they think he will have going forward. It's an investment in the second term of Donald Trump. That's what it is, and that's why he's so uncomfortable. Not just because he's palling around and having dinner with a guy who sometimes butchers journalists. What do you think, Sharon?
Only the best people. Remember that? Jared Kushner, not a self-made man, and you're right, gifted all this. And frankly, towards the end there in that second clip, it felt like he's looking for another billion or two, because that's how much, you know what, he was kissing of MBS. And let's not forget the intelligence. Remember, Turkey had that intelligence of what went down in that room as this man was cut up, still alive, put earphones in. Okay, this is going to get messy. We heard all of that. And yet this morally corrupt person is sitting there like, how dare you question me? How dare you really question that I'm not the best at this? After all, he did solve, he brought peace to the Middle East, didn't he? Isn't that what we were promised?
So.
Yeah.
I think so.
And now look, well, we'll see. We'll see what he brings to the table in the future. But you're absolutely right. He was squirming because how dare you question me? He's lived his whole life in this vacuum and a shadow. He's not ever going to be this dominant person that perhaps his father had been, or influence like his father had been. It's a lie that we all see. We all see it. And that's what made him so uncomfortable about this questioning. Be damned the man who was cut up and murdered alive like that. He was just cut up like that.
100%. Just this avatar of propped up, unearned wealth and influence and entitlement underlying it. Because the entitlement is fueled by the fact that he knows he doesn't deserve any of this. That if he deserves anything, it's far tougher questions even than were provided by Axios. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take our second break of the hour, but don't worry, more coming up after this. I don't understand these people, man. Like we were watching really fast. We just finished the new Griselda series about the drug dealer, and like she made money in large part by killing people, but she's a criminal. He is working with a guy and making money from someone who just kills people. But he's a good guy because he's wearing nice clothes and he's on TV and he's talking to Axios or whatever. I don't see the difference, really. They butcher people who get in their way. That's what they do. Okay, maybe there will be a mini series about Jared Kushner someday. I would assume it would be damning. Okay, let's see. Fab4 says, does John have a Joe Biden impression? His Trump one is spot on. Biden might come in handy. I don't. I've never really tried that, and I'm not going to try it for the first time live on air, but I'll consider working on it. Okay, let's see. I'm a damn lib says Bunker Boy endorsed Roy Moore, a pedophile from Alabama, 100%. Trump supported him. Punch Up says, let's see. It seems like it was only a year ago TYT was taking its first sip of Natty Light. Now they're doing keg stands and getting ready to experiment with hard drugs. It's been a great year. Well, with how politics has been trending, we need to. Thank you for being with us since the beginning. Okay, let's see. Mr. Dean says, congratulations, TYT, for 22 years. Thank you. If you're just joining us now, by the way, there is going to be a special retrospective on 22 years of TYT coming up in place of the bonus episode a little bit later on today. Okay, Just Dine sent in a super chat. There's no message, just the super chat, but thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see. And Tara says, what state doesn't use paper ballots? Any? Well, I don't know which of the producers put this in, but thank you. It says 5 states in the US, Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina, New Jersey, and Delaware run their elections using direct recording electronic machines, DREs, which provide no paper trail of the votes. So a few. I don't know. I wouldn't consider any of these to be super swing. Well, Georgia's kind of a swing state, but in any event, why wouldn't you have the paper trail in all cases? And why wouldn't you give people the day off to actually vote? Stefan says, what did you think of it, John? I saw it has Sofia Vergara in it and I like her acting. I'm just not sure I'd like to watch it. It was fine. I thought it was good. It's not like my favorite series ever, but it was engaging. Like I wanted to keep watching it. It was interesting. And also I didn't know anything about that figure. Apparently some people are more familiar with it. I know Catherine Zeta-Jones did, I think, a movie version of her life story a few years back. But I found it interesting. Okay, let's see. Aaron says, is AOC finally old enough for presidency in 2028? She would be. I think that she would be in 2024. But she's not kind of like keeping a very low profile, which I don't know if maybe that's a thing that she's just weathering the Biden years with and she'll come out swinging after. Or maybe that's just, she's done interviews talking about how, politics is very wearing and the constant attacks and the death threats and the harassment and all that. Like maybe she just doesn't want to be that out in front leader, of the progressive movement or whatever. I guess we will see as time goes on. Okay, let's see. Jackal Dragon says, I mean, if you think about it, TYT do help couples meet each other. We already have a couple of couples that met each other through TYT. We do. Well, I mean, I would have never met, let alone married my wife if not for TYT and that job. So you can add that to the list. Okay. Skittlebutt Dragon Rasp says, Jared, I'm a real boy. Kushner, 100%. He's like a more annoying Zuckerberg. We'll be right back. Okay, everyone, buckle up because we've got, it's a serious story. There's some comic elements to it, but let's get into it.
Shots fired! I'm hit! What? I'm in the car! I shot through the car! Oh!
Before we go to more of that video and explain what set it off, why the cop springs into action and begins unloading his weapon on his own car, we want to tell you a little bit about the details, including the amazing fact that the man that was in that car was not killed, was not injured. That is the good news from this story. In fact, nobody was killed, nobody was injured. And you might wonder, well, how that is. The guy in the video, the cop, yells, "I've been hit." The thing is, he hadn't actually been hit, and we're gonna go into all the details of that. First, we wanna show you some of those involved in the story. You can see in the photos right here. This story traces back to November of last year in Okaloosa County, Florida. And the officer that you saw in the video, Jesse Hernandez, and his partner, Beth Roberts, had a man named Marquis Jackson handcuffed in the back of the squad car that was visible in that video. An acorn apparently fell from a tree, hit the car. It was such a small thing that honestly, the first few times that I listened to the video, I didn't even hear it. That is what Hernandez apparently thought was the report of a weapon. He thought that Jackson inside of the car had begun firing at him. And not only did he think that a gun had been fired, he thought that he had been hit by a bullet after the acorn hit the car. So you see him diving away, turning, and unloading his service weapon on the car. Now, that's his involvement. Well, his partner gets involved, as you'll see in this video.
Do you know your tag number off the top of your head? Okay, it's okay. What? Where, right there? Jesse, are you okay? Get in the house! Jesse! Get back! Where is he?
In the car! Now he's shot through the car!
So that is, of course, the body cam footage from Beth Roberts, who hears the gunfire from her partner at the car and believes this thing is going down and begins also unloading her weapon on the car, which again has a single man who has already been detained by the police, is unarmed and restrained in that vehicle. And again, thankfully, he was not actually hit. Now, there are consequences, thankfully, for some of the police involved in this, and we will get to those. But first, I do want to talk about the actual victim here. So Marky Jackson posted about this experience. We want to read some excerpts from that for you. He says, I was searched multiple times, then unlawfully handcuffed and placed into the backseat of the cop car while being strapped down by the seatbelts. A few moments later, I hear an officer scream, I'm hit, he's armed. As soon as that was announced, multiple shots were fired at me while I was stuck in the back seat. All I could do was lean over and play dead to prevent getting shot in the head. Goes on to say, I was blessed not to get hit by any bullets or get hit physically, but mentally, I'm not okay. I haven't been the same since, and I don't think this feeling I have will ever change. I truly believe I'm damaged for life. I eventually found a way to rest my cuffed hands on the shattered window area to show that I wasn't armed. A few minutes later, they swarmed the car and slammed me on the ground to search me and look for any injuries. No gun was recovered from Marky Jackson because Jackson did not have a gun. Jackson had, as we said, already been searched and was restrained in the vehicle before being shot at. Now, as we said, there were consequences. Investigators concluded that Hernandez's use of force was not justified in this case because the only external stimulus he had was the sound of an acorn, which is just one of those sentences that it's gonna stick with me for a while. I don't know about you. However, his partner was exonerated. So Beth Roberts in that case was exonerated for her actions. In a statement on Hernandez's resignation, because Hernandez did resign, Sheriff Aiden defended Hernandez as genuinely fearing for his life, again, over the sound of an acorn. They were cleared of criminal wrongdoing. Sergeant Roberts apparently is still with the force. And I think that we can differentiate their responses. It still seems a little bit irresponsible to see your partner shooting at a vehicle and just begin unloading on it. But that said, she didn't know that the acorn was the only thing that led to it. She trusts her partner. She believes her partner when he says that the sound of an acorn falling from a tree was him literally being shot by someone they had already searched. And so I have less of a problem with what she did, but Sharon, I do want your thoughts on this.
This is stunning, and thank goodness that this man who was cuffed and in the police car in a seatbelt, which are incredible details that have to be stated again and again, is alive. Thank goodness he's alive. Because I saw various things as this thing will be investigated. Number one would be incompetence. This chief has got to go too, by the way, if that's the statement you're gonna give, that genuinely feared for their life. Well, then he shouldn't be a police officer if we're gonna start now fearing acorns, okay? They should not be any kind of officer encountering the public. Failure to follow perhaps training protocols. And I too have a problem with her just shooting blindly based. I'd like to know what made her trust this partner so much, but sure, they're different and should face different consequences. Lack of common sense. Have we mentioned how nutty this is? And I didn't even mean for that I didn't mean for it to come out that way, but this is nuts. And the final thing I would say, thank goodness, a bad shot, a bad shot, not even a moving target. And if you really had a threat to society, you're also a bad shot. This is an incredible comedy of errors that accidentally threaded a needle and worked out to the benefit of human life. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, of all of the sort of cartoon elements of this, the fact that thankfully they're both basically stormtroopers when it comes to shooting at someone who literally could not move, was just restrained in the vehicle. That is the good news here. The fact that there could be people beyond the car that could be hit by this fire. It's just, there's a lot of dark aspects of this. And I just think about the experience that Marky Jackson had, hearing I'm hit, he's armed, and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm about to be executed. This is madness. And you hear the shots ring out, and thankfully you survive it, but I totally buy that would traumatize you for the rest of your life. In any event, I don't think we're gonna have time to fit in our final story, but we'll keep it around for possible aftermath, and we will be tracking this story. I mean, I think a lot of people are gonna want to see in the end what ends up happening, because as you pointed out, it is nutty. So we'll talk about that in any event. For all of you who've been listening on the podcast, thank you as always. I came to TYT via podcast, so I always have a lot of love in my heart for people who listen as a podcast. You can't like the video or anything, but you know what you can do? If you appreciate the podcast, if you subscribe to the podcast, you can rate and review us on the platform of your choosing for podcasts. And for the rest of you who might be watching live on YouTube or Twitch or on the website on the members app, we've got a lot more to talk about in the aftermath, including, let's see, Curb Your Enthusiasm is receiving a frosty reception from some on the right, and we will be celebrating Valentine's Day, or at least diving into how Donald Trump celebrated Valentine's Day. You're not gonna wanna miss it. So we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody, on Big News Wednesday with Iadarola. That's me and Sharon Reed. Sharon, as always, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. You know what? It is Valentine's Day. So why don't we start off this last half hour of the show with our news focused on the holiday. It's Valentine's Day, and a lot of people like to acknowledge that on social media, posting maybe like loving messages or pictures of their partners. Others try to make a buck off of them, and that brings us to Donald Trump. So he did not forget about Melania on this Valentine's Day. He has learned, after doing that in past years, not to do that. So he did acknowledge her, kind of. Here's a fundraising email that his supporters got. It's got this image from Donald J. Trump, a Valentine's Day letter to my beautiful wife. I remember this one. That's perfectly fine. It's nice. If you like Trump, if you like Melania, you'll like this. I don't doubt that. Now, when you open up the email, here's what it says. Dear Melania, I will remind you, this is not to Melania. This is to his supporters, but okay. Dear Melania, I love you. Even after every single indictment, arrest, and witch hunt, you never left my side. You've always supported me through everything. I wouldn't be the man I am today without your guidance, kindness, and warmth. Dear God, what would he be if not for those things? But anyway, you will always mean the world to me, Melania. From your husband with love, Donald J. Trump. You know how you do when you send a message to your partner and you sign it with your full name, including your middle initial and your last name. That's what you do. So anyway, okay, fine. Maybe I'm being petty or whatever. It's a sign of his love or whatever. But it goes beyond that. It says, you know, this is you're a supporter of mine. Maybe you could leave some kind words for the First Lady as well. And that's probably appealing to a lot of the people that got this message. They like Melania. She's classy or whatever. But when you click to send the kind words, what do you think it takes you to? A prompt to give him money. Not Melania, by the way. This isn't going to buying more I really don't care do you jackets or anything. This isn't like her go bag fund for when she finally splits. No, this is to go to him and his legal defense. It suggests you give him $47. So you're just excited for this couple who you believe are in love or attracted to each other or have any affection or intimacy whatsoever, and it just wants your money. And if you try to leave rather than give money, it brings this up. So now the lovey-dovey stuff is out the door. Now it's time for threats. Trump is in black and white pointing at you and saying, no matter how many vicious lies and attacks they throw our way, we'll never surrender to tyranny. Like there's nothing about love anymore. There's nothing about Valentine's Day. This is about you will die and your family will die unless you give me $47, punk. So, you know, Valentine's Day stuff. Sharon, what do you think?
I was trying to think what the $47 is equivalent to. On Instacart, Costco, you can get 2 dozen roses, I think, for under $15. Okay, so nice, I don't know, maybe you get a triple or something like this. But it's, listen, I don't even want to criticize Donald J. Trump, which is normally what I love to do, but I'm going to reserve that for another day because this is Valentine's Day. This is what his supporters want. They want to give their last dollars. They want to do it even in a crass way with an open love letter, Valentine's Day card signed with the full name by Donald Trump. It's all good because this is what they enjoy and it's their Valentine's Day too. So I really think it's a service to those MAGA, those supporters who just can't get enough of him and his love story. And so, yeah. Hey, give him the money, go in a second time, don't wait for the threat, and we'll see. You never know where it's gonna go, but as long as it's in the right hands.
I'll never understand. I get wanting to support the politicians that you love or whatever. Like, you know, I donated to Bernie, but if Bernie was a billionaire, Bernie's on his own.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to, there's so many Trump fans that are probably gonna struggle to like get their partner what they'd like. It's not cheap, you know, the chocolates and the roses and the balloons and all that. That's expensive stuff. But instead, just take all that money and just throw it into a billionaire who doesn't need it. Ridiculous.
And Bernie would just want those mittens. Remember the mittens and the scarf? It's easy if it's
Maybe
Bernie.
some pink and red ones.
That's right. Yeah.
Finally, look, some of you might be thinking, John, you're being too hard on Trump. Trump didn't send that letter. That's his campaign, and he's not totally in charge of that. Don't judge the man on what his campaign does. Judge the man on what he does. So let's do that. Let's judge Donald Trump, but also Joe Biden for what they themselves did on their social media on Valentine's Day. Well, Biden sent this. It's a photo of him and his wife Jill from, I'm gonna say 60 years ago. It says, "Jilly, you're the love of my life and the life of my love. Happy Valentine's Day." That's sweet. I like that. I like that. How about Trump? Trump sent this. "Biden is not too old. He's too incompetent." That's sweet. Maybe that's like an in-joke between him and Melania. Maybe he didn't utterly forget about her on social media again. In his defense, there's no chance she has the Truth Social app on her phone. So anyway, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Don't be like Trump, it's weird. Okay, with that said, we're gonna turn to our next topic in just one sec. But first, Grandma Sunshine Dragon's been a member for 32 months, says today is my kitty cat Junebug's 14th birthday. Happy Valentine's Day, John, Sharon, Dragons, and chat. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day, Grandma, as well as Junebug. I hope it's a good one. Okay, with that said, let's move to one of the stupidest things I've seen in a while. Curb Your Enthusiasm is back for its 12th and final season, and people generally seem to be enjoying it. The Metacritic rating of the season is quite good. Not everyone loves it though, admittedly. Here is what Marjorie Greene had to say about the new season. "I watched this week's episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and it was a glaring reminder of why most Georgians resent Republicans in our state for inviting the nasty commies from California, the Hollywood elites, into our state by dishing out Hollywood tax credits. This week's episode lied and painted Georgia conservatives and Trump supporters as racists and rednecks and made fun of our good new law," amazing grasp of the English language, "that stops the Stacey Abrams vote pandering machine and prevents voter fraud." I don't know what the pandering has to do with anything. "We in Georgia are fed up with disgusting Hollywood and their disgusting values and elite judgment in our state that is trying to turn Georgia blue." Look, if anybody's trying to turn Georgia blue in the last few election cycles, it's been Trump, because he's the one putting forward absolute chuckleheads for Senate, which is why the Democrats have won some of those elections. But you might wonder, okay, why is she all worked up? What's gotten her so aggravated? Probably long COVID combined with ivermectin. But chemical stuff aside, she did watch the episode, I guess. Remember, she watches a lot of TV. She watches The Damage Report from time to time. Hey, Marge. So at the end of episode 1 of the new season, lead character Larry David is arrested for handing water to a friend waiting in line to vote, which is technically not allowed. In the second episode, he leaves jail and he's hailed as a liberal icon by Morning Joe, former Georgia politician and Democrat Stacey Abrams, and even Bruce Springsteen. So he gets kind of accidentally drawn into politics or whatever. So they're lying here, according to Marge. They're lying by having this scenario where a person would get arrested for handing water to voters, and she is kind of correct, but also lying at the same time, and that's what makes it so fun. So she is only kind of correct, not because they didn't do this in Georgia and she didn't support it in Georgia. No, they did, and she did. But last year, a judge partially struck down the Georgia ban on giving voters food and water in polling lines. So technically you can now do it, but they totally tried to outlaw it. If they ended up looking anti-democratic or racist or whatever for this bill, that's only because they did the bill. And she was perfectly supportive of this, of petty stuff like wanting people to be thirsty and hungry in line so they'd quit and not vote, or even the bill, and this part I think is still in, forced you to write your birth date on the outer envelope of mail-in ballots. And you might wonder, well, what does that have to do with voting? Nothing. It's just a thing that would be easy to forget or not know that you have to do, that they can use to disqualify ballots. That's it. This entire bill is designed to make it so that people can't vote, because when they do vote, Georgia's looking more blue these days, at least purple. That's why Dems have been winning some elections there. And she doesn't want that at all. So she can complain about Hollywood and nasty commies. What she doesn't like is the fact that Georgians increasingly don't agree with her or her colleagues. Sharon, what do you think?
And she doesn't know about the judge partially overturning anything. So I vote for the flat out lying across the board. But I understand. You want to be correct. You want to give her a little bit of credit here. That's exactly what's going on. Kudos to Curb Your Enthusiasm and Larry David. I haven't watched. I'll catch up. I'll do like the marathon or something at some point. But I think it's beautiful. And you know what would really be great? And maybe this is what she's angling for. Marjorie Taylor Greene should try to get a guest spot, even if she's the butt of whatever the joke is. She should try to just go on there, play herself, and maybe that'll be the best way to defend against this incredible comedy genius.
They should, like, even if they don't have her on, they should incorporate her tweeting about Larry David into the show somehow. I would love that.
Oh, that's perfect.
And finally, like we hate Hollywood. You guys love the tiny, pathetic version of Hollywood you have. Keep Kevin Sorbo off Fox News for one day if you hate it so much. Dean Cain, if you hate it so much. And you guys love coming to California to raise money from conservatives in Hollywood. So shut up with your lies.
Ooh, John Boyd.
Anyway, okay, with that said, we're gonna move to other news about the second episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm kidding, we're gonna turn to something very different. A new report details chaos and out of control spending inside the RFK Jr. presidential campaign, with multiple sources, both current and former employees of that campaign, revealing some truly damning details of how top consultants are apparently living large on donor money. So the report is not particularly damning or specific about really anything having to do with RFK Jr., but basically paints a picture of him having brought people in, top consultants, some of whom he's related to, who are just taking the money and having a wild time with it. One source said the campaign is not run like a business. There is no professional environment. It feels like a spring break party cruise. Dell has been heard on multiple occasions saying, "We are like rock stars, and this is like being on tour with a rock band," which is definitely the attitude you want one of your top people to have. But they're referring there to Del Bigtree, who along with Amaryllis Fox Kennedy are identified as major problems in this reporting. The source said that lavish spending of Bigtree and others is also a quote point of contention among campaign workers, recalling one incident where Bigtree joined a Zoom call from a skiing resort. That sounds like fun. Dell, this is the source. Dell is running around spending money lavishly. He's doing Zoom calls from the slopes with champagne, while many people are volunteers and not getting paid. So if you are like a devoted RFK Jr. person, you think that like he understands science or whatever, and he should totally be president. How angry would you be if you see one of the top people wasting the money on champagne and having fun? I can understand how you'd be annoyed by that. And the spending is apparently quite lavish. Bigtree's firm KFP Consulting was paid $35,000 in just December. It's made $90,000 so far. This is just a consultant, by the way, so let's be clear about that. Starlight Saint, that's the LLC registered to campaign COO Matthew Sanders, makes $20,000 every month. More Beautiful World, the LLC registered to campaign advisor Charles Eisenstein, made almost $22,000 in October, November, and December of last year. So that's a lot of money going out to these consultants. That is easy money, literally. And the source said it suggests they're looking to line some pockets of consultants who are most likely looking to milk every penny of this campaign. Volunteers cannot put together a national campaign field operation, certainly not when the money is being drained for other things. And there's other revelations from this reporting that's fascinating. We'll get to that in just a bit. But Sharon, what do you make of this?
Spot on. That's exactly what's going on here. And it's a shame because no matter what your politics are, who you support, this race being opened up to others is a good thing, okay? But this is well, it feels like, I'll say, a conspiracy to do just that. Remember, consultants get paid no matter the result. Big money, living high, flying high, private probably, no matter what the platform is. And it really sucks. It sucks for everyday people who are believing in a cause, a candidate, a platform, and sacrificing. They're sacrificing for this America's democracy to be open and hopefully valid for other people. And so it's really a shame when you lift the curtain and see what is alleged to be going on.
Yeah, whether you like Kennedy or not, whether you think he's a good candidate or should hold political power in any regard or whatever, like yeah, a lot of people do have faith in him, and it must suck. And this is not the reason I find this so compelling. It isn't really even about RFK Jr. This is a plague on so many candidacies that they are either like led to believe that you need these consultants, these geniuses, masters of political strategy. And so you spend all your time raising money just for it to go to them. And again, as you pointed out, they don't even really care if you win or not because they make the money either way. It's not based on success. Or in some cases, you are required to put money into these consultants. If you're like a Democrat or whatever, like you have to hire some of these people to get the support of the party. And what do you know? Often they know these consultants. Some of them are or have been consultants. So it's this incestuous, corrupt thing that takes down so many candidates, whether we think they're good candidates or competent or whatever. It's definitely a thing. And I want to end by being fair. Fox Kennedy, one of the consultants who is scorched by this report, responded to the story by saying, with over 100 staff members and tens of thousands of volunteers nationwide, Team Kennedy has great folks come and go depending on the needs of each phase of the campaign. As the most successful independent campaign of the last 3 decades, we wish them nothing but the best. NBC's latest poll has RFK at 34% with 9 months still ahead. I was not able to find that poll, but okay, maybe it exists. And we are laser focused on delivering a historic victory for our country this November. The reference to people coming and going is that 14 members of the campaign have resigned since just the start of this year, including 12 field staff and 2 main staff. They apparently still have dozens of people. We're not supposed to see that as an issue, although I will remind you all that there was a lot of reporting of Ron DeSantis's like turmoil in his campaign staff. And how's Ron DeSantis doing these days? But anyway, they are still saying, it's not a problem. We're doing fine. And in fact, we're going to win in November. We'll see about that. But anyway, I would be defensive if I had been attacked in this particular way. Okay, I think we have time. We're going to do one more story. We're going to defy the odds and get to one more story. We even have time to get to a few of your comments. So the Jack says in a super chat, Ivanka is his real Valentine. Hey, it's fine to think of your daughter as being your Valentine when she's 6 months old, I think. I think it's cool for me to do it. I don't know about him doing it at that age, but anyway, I don't think he's spending much time with either of them. It's just like, I know that I talk about this a lot. We're just led to believe money is the best thing ever. Just get as much of it as possible and your life will be better. Does he seem happy? Like he has a loveless marriage. He has a terrible relationship with his kids. Like, he's just desperately trying to get back in power, but the joke is on him because the power will not bring him any peace, any happiness, any satisfaction. He wants it. It's a need that needs to be filled, but he's not going to enjoy it in any way. What a terrible life to lead. Anyway, Court for Jester's been with us on Twitch for 41 months. Says, can we call him Officer Chicken Little? The sky is raining bullets. Technausea that says Stormtrooper aim for the win. Well, for the win of the person who thankfully wasn't shot at the very least. Okay, with that said, I want to get to the story which we've been wanting to talk about for a couple days now, and now is the time we're going to do it. It seems like in America, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, our public officials engaging in a little bit of racism doesn't bring any consequences. Well, today on the Damage Report, we're going to bring you that 10th instance. And it involves Michigan GOP State Representative Josh Shriver. So he decided to have a little bit of fun on social media by circulating a post about the Great Replacement theory. We're gonna bring up the post in a sec. If you're not familiar with this conspiracy theory, good. I'm glad that it's not weighing down your conscience, the fact that people believe this, but it's basically an idea that white people are being replaced by non-white people. Not like literally replaced, the white people are still here. There's just also other people. I guess that's not scary enough, which is why they talk about replacement as if the white people are disappearing. Now, a couple of years back, this is a thing that you would have only come across on literal Nazi websites or the darkest corners of 4chan. But now it's just a thing that Republican politicians and Fox News say on a daily basis. But that said, this is a particularly bad version of it. Here is the thing that he retweeted. So Jack Posobiec had posted this. It's a map of the world, and there's a few lingering like outposts of whiteness that is being swarmed by, I guess, black people, regardless of where they are in the world. They're black everywhere, I suppose. They've even taken over Ireland, everyone. In fact, most of Europe doesn't even count as white to these people. Hey, LA's not white anymore, I guess. And so that's what Jack Posobiec said. I don't know if he made the image, if he literally spent like an hour copying and pasting like a black stick figure. I don't know. But Representative Josh Shriver retweeted it with a down graph. So the idea is that everything's getting worse because good white people are being replaced. But here are the consequences, because generally you just post that and nothing happens. He actually lost some staff. He's removed from one of his committees as a result of this. That is the House Natural Resources, Environment, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Committee. Which, yeah, I don't want a guy on any committee if he's posting things like that. God only knows what damage he could do to our natural resources and tourism in that state. Now, we are going to get to in a few his attempt to tweet through all of this, which is just the best. But I want to get your thoughts, Sharon. What do you think about that post?
I don't know where to begin, as we wrap up the show on this day of love, when you have someone, I don't know what to say. If this is what you honestly believe, you're not living in reality. And perhaps the rest of us dip in and out, who knows? But this is off the charts, outer space stuff that is unfortunately come to Earth too often these days. I think losing a committee after a racist post is okay, I guess. But in reality, should you really be anywhere near a committee? Should you really be a representative? Should you really be anywhere other than getting some help where people, what do you call it when they reverse the indoctrination? What do you call that? Therapy?
Like you're deprogramming?
Deprogramming is what's necessary here. It really is, by definition.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I see things like this. People like he's already in elected office. He's a young man. Like think like if you're watching this, I want you to think about like the people in your life who are good people, intelligent people, who care, who could, if they could hold some sort of elected office, do some good. But they'll never be able to. They'll never have the opportunity or the money or whatever. And then you see the people who actually make it into office, and they are some of the most reprehensible, ignorant, dumb donkeys in America. And yet they have the power. Not as much as they had before they tweeted that thing, but still some. So here is his attempt to tweet through this. He says, I'm a white rapper and most conservative voting representative in Michigan. I guess it was only a matter of time before I was falsely labeled a racist. He goes on to say, I don't think retweeting that guy was racist, especially since I'm not and never have been a racist. So I cannot offer a fake political apology for views I don't hold. Okay, so he's not even going to apologize. He's saying, I'm not a racist. I've never been a racist. I'm being falsely labeled a racist. Can we bring that image back up? Because if you don't get how people might have a problem with the idea that you think that the whole world is being swarmed by black people, black people in Africa, black people in Russia, black people in China, how those countries are, that's not racist. I don't know how we're supposed to get through to you. That is wild. I mean, maybe he's posting this because he thinks, okay, I'm already in trouble. Let me at least use this opportunity to get the right to like me more. And they love when people are unrepentant a-holes. So maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know. But this conspiracy theory, by the way, of the Great Replacement, and I'll close with this, isn't just a thing that racists post about online. I will remind you that the Buffalo mass shooter in his manifesto had references to this conspiracy theory. This is a thing that motivates some people to start gunning down others based on their racism. And it isn't just a thing that mass shooters and the occasional state rep believe in. Elon Musk is now regularly posting about this same conspiracy theory that has already inspired multiple terrorist attacks, posting things like very few people in America realize that their vote will be rendered meaningless. Again, this genius, this Iron Man of the real world seems to think that this is happening. It's an intentional thing, and somehow white votes are actually replaced rather than just there's more people. Like, he can vote. He came in. He doesn't seem to have a problem with that. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder what the difference is between him and these other migrants. Anyway, super last point to you, Sharon, if you want.
I think you put the perfect exclamation mark at the end of this thing. And perhaps your reality, your fact-based response commentary to this is it's a little too complicated. And so people, well, for some it is. They prefer to just go with the original offensive, bigoted, racist tweet.
Maybe.
It's just simpler that way. You're making things a little complicated.
Okay, I apologize for that, everybody.
Yeah.
I'll make it simple. That is racist. We should all understand that. It's common sense.
Got it.
Anyway, that's all the time we have for the Valentine's Day edition of the Damage Report. Sharon, as always, thank you for joining us and making it a big news Wednesday. We appreciate it.
I wish love for everyone.
Love to everyone. Have a good one. And for all of you out there, we've got the anniversary of TYT in addition to Valentine's Day. We're gonna have that special coming up a little bit later on in place of the bonus episode. And remember, it's available to everyone, not just members. But if you enjoy it, feel free to become a member. I will be joining the second hour of the Young Turks with Anna Kasparian, so join me there. But for now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
welcome is indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day with me, my contributor, none other than Wosny Lumbre, TYT contributor. Always fascinating to have his analysis. Top story of the day, Nikki Haley says no. It's actually Donald Trump who's in cognitive decline and decides to provide some context for her proclamation. Here's part of it.
The former president yesterday endorsed a group of loyalists, including his daughter-in-law, to run the RNC now. The idea, reportedly, to bring the campaign closer to the party. What do you make of that?
He's just trying to control as much as he can control. But we don't want a king in America. That's the problem.
They heard your criticism earlier, and they responded. Trump campaign spokesman said, quote, Nikki, brain dead, bird brain Haley reeks of desperation, as it's clear she knows she has no shot and is now auditioning for a cable news contract when her 15 minutes are over.
It's a weak response. You know we're under the skin because you saw what he did at the rally on Saturday.
Over the weekend, Donald Trump questioned the whereabouts of Nikki Haley's husband, who's serving a year-long deployment in Africa for the South Carolina Army National Guard.
Where's her husband? Oh, he's away. He's away. What happened to her husband? What happened to her husband? Where is he? He's gone.
You know, to mock my husband, Michael and I can handle that. But you mock one member of the military, you mock all members of the military.
But the reality is he's talked about the military for years now in disparaging ways. Suckers, losers, John McCain, Gold Star families. What's different now? What's different this time?
Before, when he did it, it was during the 2016 election. Everybody thought, oh, did he have a slip? What did that mean?
Lies, madam. You knew good and damn well he had no slip. He reasserted his position, doubled down on the position, tripled down on the position, and decided to echo the position again in multiple interviews. Beyond that, I don't think he's losing support because he talked about your hubby. I think it was a great one-liner that you prepared for. You talk about one member of the military, you talk about them all. Now, wait a minute though, hold on. He's been doing this, so what's the difference? As the interviewer pointed out. Also, there is hypocrisy from the Trump campaign. They said in their official response that Nikki Haley is brain dead and bird brain. You cannot coexist. Either she is brain dead or she has a bird brain. It is one or the other. Now, there's something else that's quite ironic that Nikki Haley said that we must highlight for the record. Here it is.
The problem now is he is not the same person he was in 2016. He is unhinged. He is more diminished than he was.
You endorsed him when he ran again. You were a vocal supporter. You were out on the campaign trail.
I'm the first one to say I voted for him twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But you can go back and look at my book. I cite multiple times, and he knows it, when I called him out for things that he was doing that were wrong. Since I got out of the administration, I have called him out multiple times, which is why he's upset because he thinks I'm disloyal. I'm not loyal to anyone. I don't do that.
Yeah. She says, I'm not loyal to anyone. Now, the irony is, there was just a story a few weeks ago that she's not loyal to her own husband, which, by the way, there's a sworn affidavit stating that alleged fact. Let's get into it. Presidential candidate Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, turned the cognitive decline tables on former President Donald Trump during an interview with today's Craig Melvin, which aired Wednesday morning. Trump recently ridiculed her husband, Michael Haley, or more specifically, his lack of presence on the campaign trail due to being currently deployed overseas as a National Guardsman. Now, I'm going to say this.